foreseen. Change was inevitable. Masters of manipulation, orchestrators of grand complexity, all touched by the architect of fate. Do you seek the ultimate truth? We reveal the unfathomable. Manipulate fate for
Legends of War here, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Tzeentch. Now, we just got a trailer, and great, more trailers, right? This video is not really focusing on the trailer, right? But Creative Assembly was kind enough to send the trailer for me to watch early, and also some information on the campaign mechanics for Tzeentch, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Now, I probably wouldn't have bothered making this video on it because there's not any real gameplay here to assess, but the stuff that I read that you'll be able to see in the blog kind of got me really excited, and so I want to analyze it. Basically, just before we talk about it at all, it seems to me like Tzeentch is going to be so overpowered in Game 3, depending on how they balance these mechanics. Basically, they're taking the High Elves and the Skaven and being like, you know what would make a good faction if we just combine these two together? And that's basically what Tzeentch is going to be. Everything that's strong about the High Elves and everything that's strong about the Skaven, well, Tzeentch is getting the whole lot of it. Okay, so let me just get this blog up. I've got an image up. And we'll go through some of the campaign mechanics. So they definitely went above and beyond what I expected to see from the various different chaos gods in this, based on what I've read. So every chaos god is going to function very differently, and they're only focusing on Tzeentch right now, and they're not even focusing on Kairos Fate Weaver's mechanics. So it's pretty much confirmed that later down the track, after Warhammer 3 is released, that there will be future DLC and FLC that will align with Tzeentch. So they'll make use of the racial mechanics, but those lords, whatever they're going to be, I don't know, they will have their own special mechanic. So we're not going to be focusing too much on the legendary lords of Tzeentch, but the actual race itself and what they're doing on the campaign map. I'm not really going to bother about the army roster because that doesn't really mean anything without some kind of context. You know, having certain units on discs and flamers of Tzeentch, that's all really cool. I just don't know how they're going to perform. So, but what we can sort of identify is the stuff that's coming in the campaign mechanics, because that actually gives us a much better picture of what we're going to be dealing with. So let's go down and have a look at this. So the main resource, apart from like gold, that Tzeentch's factions are going to have is grimoires. So there's various ways to get them, from battles, buildings, sacking settlements, whatever, and you accumulate these over the course of campaigns and spend them in different ways, in changing the ways. Now, the changing of the way, as I was reading this, I was just thinking, oh my god, this is could be broken as hell. So what it does, some of these, right? So reveal faction intentions. That probably just, I think that just shows the fog of war over that particular faction. They've got descriptions on all this stuff over here. Transfer settlement. This one seems really overpowered, but apparently this one here is probably should just go through these in list of this, not this one here. Basically, you target a settlement, and then you just give it to somebody else, including yourself. You can just give it to yourself. So you might be like, hey, Altdorf, mine! And just take Altdorf for yourself. Of course, if you do that, there's probably going to be ramifications and you might not be able to hold it. Or what you could do, this is, oh my god, I didn't expect them to do this with Tzeentch. What you could do is be like, Altdorf. Let's give that to Nagarond. And then all of a sudden Nagarond owns Altdorf, and then you could start a war that way. Or you could be like, I don't know, I'll let the dwarves have that. Or you could just or maybe there's a faction you want to keep alive. You just need to get them, like, let's just say Isabella, right? You're trying to farm Isabella. Oh no, she's about to die. Okay, let's take a far off settlement where there's no danger and just give it to the von Karsteins. So this here is identifying like massive manipulation within the campaign. Like, this is bullshit, but like in a good way, in a real Tzeentch sort of way. So you got Open Gates as the next one. Open Gates are a major settlement with walls for any battles at a settlement next few turns. Basically, that just means siege attacker. That's okay, I guess. Force Rebellion. This is probably going to be totally useless, I imagine, because if I play on legendary difficulty, and generally speaking, the AI always have like bonuses versus rebellions. So we'll see about this one. If it causes like an army with like 6 units to show up and then it barely gains any motion and then attacks a settlement and then loses, then that's pretty useless. A lot of times in other Total War games where you can force rebellions. So another case of that is I think Clan Eshen's actually got something like that where you can actually force a rebellion. But that's actually useful for bringing factions back from the dead. So maybe that could be useful in that regard. It just depends on how it works. So that could be total crap, or it could be kind of useful. Hard to say at this stage. But basically, having rebellions defeat the AI factions on legendary difficulty, or even anything above normal difficulty, is a futile effort. You should save your grimoires. Depending on how things are. I'm not expecting huge changes within how the way the campaign works in Warhammer 3, but we'll see. So track army, you're given line of sight of a single army. Can't imagine that'd be very expensive. That's cool. Everything, being able to spot certain armies, is cool. It's useful. Reveal faction intentions. Shows the plans of all armies of a target faction control. So I don't know what it means by show the plans of it. It might just show the... well, hang on. Reveal Shroud shows the complete vision of a target's faction territory. So really, I don't know what that means. It might show like... the arrows of where they're planning to go, maybe. So we'll have to actually look to see what that means. This one here will definitely be a tricky one, because if you can see like what they're planning on doing in advance, then that would be very useful. But we'd have to see how it actually applies on the campaign, so we'll see about that one. Halt faction. This one here seems like total bullshit. All characters, so armies and heroes, have their movement halted and disabled for the faction's following turn. What? That seems a bit broken. Could you imagine, like, if that's done on you? You're about to catch an army on force march or whatever, and you're about to deliver the final blow, and then boom, you can't just do anything for a single turn. Or what if you're caught in force, or like, what if you were moving in force march, and you weren't in range of any armies, and then Tzeentch does this to you, and you're like, oh crap, I can't move, and then an army comes in, in the range of you in the next turn. So that could be very overpowered. So interesting to see how that goes. Give war coordination target. Gives a faction a war coordination target, even if they are not your ally. Yeah, I'll see about that one, because like allies tend to ignore my war coordination targets. Like, I'm like, go attack them, and they're like, nah, fuck you, and they just ignore me. So I don't know if that's actually going to be useful at all. It largely just depends on whether or not this one works. So this one here is very dependent on the AI. So it might be great, or it might be totally useless. We'll just have to wait and see. So break alliance, break the military or defensive alliance between two factions. This is what I'm talking about, where these guys are basically the high elves. This is like the influence mechanic, except you don't have to like bribe them, like make them use like tons of favor to do this kind of stuff. So imagine as Tzeentch being able to be like, what, Reichland and Karaz-Karak are allies? Not anymore, they're not. It could be a bit busted. And then force war. Force a war between two factions. Now, I wonder if that will allow them to like bypass their alliances as well. That could just be like an even more powerful one of this. It just depends on if they've... Maybe you can't do it if they've gotten on aggression pacts with each other. I don't know. But that is disgustingly manipulative, which is exactly in the line of what Tzeentch should be doing. So I definitely really like what I'm seeing here, and I imagine each of these have a pretty sizable cooldown. You can see here, so reveal shroud costs 50 grimoires, which doesn't mean anything because I don't know how long it takes to get 50 grimoires. and it lasts for 5 turns. Who knows what the cooldown is? I don't really see it here. So we'll just have to wait and see. A lot of these are also locked by technologies. So the Force War, you're not going to be able to do that just on turn 1. So the tech tree for Tzeentch, you're just going to have to, focus on that one if you want to get it. So these aren't all going to be available at the start of the campaign. So I guess that's one way of balancing it. But it seems to me like Tzeentch is going to have like a really, really strong late game with a lot of options. And this is just one of the things that they can do, right? So they've also got Winds of Magic manipulation, which is cool. I've already been doing tons of that in Warhammer 2. Using knowledgeable stuff like that. But basically, the gist of what Tzeentch can do is have buildings that have... I'm not going to go into super detail with it, but basically he can adjust how much base Winds of Magic is in a region. So currently, there are 5 different settings to each region. They're either like no winds, like calm Winds of Magic, which is -50. The other one is like just not strong Winds of Magic is -20. Normal is 0 Winds of Magic, so that means base 60. Then there's strong Winds of Magic with 20, and then tempestuous at 50. So Tzeentch will be able to manipulate which regions have tempestuous and which ones are like completely empty. So you could maybe use that so you can pull Winds of Magic out of regions where you're not fighting and put them into regions where you are fighting. Or if the enemy have a lot of spellcasters in a certain region, you could strip the Winds of Magic out of that area to deny them of it. But the AI in the past has proven to be pretty bad with Winds of Magic anyway, so we'll just have to see how the AI behaves in that regard. Corruption's going to play a much bigger part in this as well. So each of the Chaos Gods have their own corruption, but we've already seen that. So they're no longer in the actual Chaos corruption. There's actually a Tzeentch corruption. And there's various things that they can do, which, we'll go through some of this stuff. So, Scriveners of Insanity, unlocked from the start, allows a friendly army to generate a big batch of grimoires over the course of several turns. The army cannot move during this time and must be in enemy territory. That feels to me like shit. Having an army being unable to move over the course of several turns... Like, it'd have to be a lot of grimoires, and you probably need another army supporting it. Like, if you've got a Saxony, it depends on the details. Like, if you could just have a lord by themselves sit in a region and generate however many grimoires it is at the same rate as a full stack, then that would... Well, it just depends. Like, we just don't know what the actual details are. But having... Like, if you have to have a full stack and have it not doing anything for several turns... the reward better be worth it, because that could really screw you over if you don't do it. Don't do it well. Mutagenic Energies requires 1500 global Tzeentch corruption. So, I don't know. I guess you just need to have... I'm guessing that it works like this. This is just a pure guess. That every percentage point in a region counts as 1. So, essentially, you would need 15 regions at like 15 provinces at full 100% corruption in order for that goal to be hit, or it just means 1500 influence across all regions. Have no idea. I don't know what this means at this stage, but that seems like a lot. I don't know. We'll see. Causes a target army to suffer attrition for a turn, regardless of situation or immunity. So basically, it's like the plague. Now, again, this largely depends on different difficulties, because on legendary difficulty, AI armies take like 90% less attrition than the player. So if you do this and they take like, oh, this army will lose 5 units over the next turn, then that's crap. So we'll see. It depends on the game. This might be useful on lower difficulties, or maybe they've actually planned this stuff out. But from my experience with Creative Assembly, they tend not to think of everything. So we'll just have to wait and see with that. I mean, causing attrition could be useful. I don't know. We'll just see. To see how it plays. But that's not something I'm particularly excited about. Magic Flare requires 3000 global Tzeentch corruption. Increases the range and barrier hit points of all units in an army. Barrier is a special unit, special shield all Tzeentch units have. We'll detail further in the upcoming roster reveal. Now, I have no idea what that means, but the first thing that came to mind is basically Tzeentch is Protoss from StarCraft, and that all Tzeentch units have a secondary health pool. Well, their primary health pool is like a small amount of barrier, which goes down really quickly. I don't know, maybe. I have no idea. I don't know what this Bane stuff, but it says we'll detail this further in the upcoming roster reveal. I don't know what that means at this point. I mean, apart from the Russell reveal, so there's not enough information about that one, but you know that could be good. Maybe. I mean, it's worth a lot, so we'll see. Night of Madness requires 6,000 global Tzeentch corruption. Target friendly armies generate Tzeentch corruptions and control. Renamed from Public Order, lost in a province, as well as increasing the army's Winds of Magic power reserve. It cannot move during these turns. Yeah, that seems like crap. Yeah, that seems like crap. Like if you've got an army in an area and you target it with this, and it increases the amount of Tzeentch corruption. Okay, don't usually rely on buildings to do that. Having an entire army do that, just I don't know, it feels like a waste of an army. So, and it being unable to move, it feels like a deal breaker. It would have to be a significant amount of corruption and control in order for this to be worth it. Because this kind of seems like literally seems like the least impactful of them, but. We got to see how it plays out. So now that there's also cults within each of the Chaos factions, they're only detailing about Tzeentch. So I don't have all the information, so a lot of this is just speculation. But I imagine that they'll kind of act like undercities, sort of like Oxyodal's mechanic, where you've got like a separate building underneath your buildings, and there's various things that you can build, and it'll either generate grimoires, or this one here, the campus, increases the Winds of Magic here and in all adjacent to Tempestuous. Which, you know, that's pretty good. That extra 50 Winds of Magic. Seems like Tzeentch is going to really need that Winds of Magic. But at the same time, we also seem like we're going to need the Grimoires. So we'll see how that plays out, but that seems cool. Doesn't seem overly complicated. Seems like the Oxyodal mechanic was kind of a precursor to this. They were testing the ground with it. So I imagine it's kind of like the Undercity mechanic, kind of. Now, here's one that I think they just were like, do you know what we need? Do you know what faction isn't very powerful? Skaven. So let's take the Skaven mechanic and make it even more powerful. So what we've got here is Teleportation, right? Unique to Tzeentch and unlocked through the tech tree, his armies go into teleport stand. At least it's not available straight at the start. This costs Winds of Magic reserve power to adopt, but is extremely powerful. Not only does it allow crossing of impassable terrain, say mountain ranges, rivers, patrolled areas, but instantly triggers an ambush battle should you target enemy army. So what we've got here is basically the underway stance that can target enemy armies and guarantee an ambush, at least according to this. So, and you can re-adopt it next turn. The only downside, you know how like Stalk in the Skaven reduces the ambush success chance by 15%, right? So, you know, you just get tons of ambush success chance so that you have 115%, so you guarantee that you'll always succeed. Imagine if you're like minus 10 Winds of Magic, but you could jump over mountains and ambush anyone, and regardless of what their ambush defense chance is, you just ambush them because you just teleport straight on top of them. Imagine the Stalk stance, but you could just jump over any terrain. Bullshit. People are gonna hate this shit going up against it. Love it playing it. I'm looking forward to doing this stuff because this is right up my alley, right? But I can imagine that people are gonna be like, fucking Tzeentch, it's always teleporting on my ass. First they stun me with their stupid faction mechanic, and then they ambush me. Yeah. It's gonna be fun fighting Tzeentch. I'm sure that's, yeah. Like, this is the thing. Like, when Khorne was revealed, I was like, yeah, Khorne doesn't sound interesting at all. It's like, kill units and gain special resources. Pfft. I've always said Tzeentch is way better than Khorne. But we'll see. Khorne's faction mechanic stuff still coming. And then their tech tree, which apparently it works like a spiral thing that goes out in various directions. So you go out one way or another to gain the various things. Obviously, we can look at some of this stuff, and some of it does require grimoires. But we'll have to actually look at it when we actually get access to it, because a lot of this is obscured. But it does seem fairly meaty. Like, what we're seeing here seems to be about 60% of its technologies. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's all for Tzeentch at the moment. This doesn't even talk about Kairos's Fate Weavers mechanics, which, being a base game faction, is probably going to be pretty lackluster. Like, +1 public order in all regions, something crap like that. Whereas DLC factions would be like, minus 100% cost for all grimoire costs, or, you know, something ridiculously pay to win stuff like that, which I'm fine with. Whatever, I just got used to it and it's fun. I think that's a big thing with Warhammer. It's like, I gave up with the whole balance thing a long time ago, and I'm just like, I've just fallen straight into the pit of unbalance and chaos. Yeah, it's a fitting word for it here. But anyway, So based on this, like, I don't get excited about blog posts, but as I was reading this, I was like, okay, I was already hyped for Tzeentch, and I didn't think I could get any more hyped, and I kind of thought that the base game stuff was going to be a bit boring, but this was really interesting, and it's just, my big concern is how well this is going to all play out. Like, it's good to just read this stuff and be like, oh, is that what Tzeentch is going to do? Well, that seems like fun. It seems like something that it's like, stuff that we've seen, but then we get more of it. It's just like taken to a whole new level. It'd be interesting to see if Tzeentch gets access to knowledgeable characters and heroes, so we can have even more Winds of Magic. We'll just have to wait and see with that kind of stuff. I mean, but you know, as far as I'm concerned, what I'm seeing here is interesting. It's very interesting. It makes me want to play it, and I think they're doing the right thing now by finally giving us some information about what the game is going to play, apart from just like roster reveals, which we don't really know if the units are going to be good until we've actually seen gameplay, which we haven't really yet, but we'll see. Anyway, that's the end of this one here. Let me know in the comments below what you think about all this stuff. I'm definitely excited to play as Tzeentch, and it will possibly be the first one I cover. Possibly, we'll see. I mean, it could all be complete garbage, but I just won't know until I play it. But let me know what you think. I'm sure that if this is as overpowered as I think it's going to be, people are going to be like, people hate going up against Skaven currently, and that people will be like, oh good, I'm only at war with the Skaven after this. At least I'm not at war with Tzeentch, that motherfucker, because you know all the shit that he can do to you. But it could be quite interesting. Anyway, that's the end of this one. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time, fuckers. Bye.